Hey, this is Kevin Robinson, K-Rob. You're listening to The Expansion Project.
Welcome back to The Expansion Project. I am your host, Fat Tony, and on this show I have casual yet deep conversations with professional athletes, entrepreneurs, coaches, investors, and other successful people in hopes of expanding my mind and yours while motivating and inspiring people along the way. This week I sat down with JJ Palmere, who is a BMX rider originally from Philadelphia and currently living in San Diego. He's sponsored by Fiend, Primo, The Trip, and Deadline, and he's about as hardcore as you can get when it comes to street riders. However, we didn't talk about BMX at all. What we did was we had a long discussion all about veganism. Both JJ and I have been plant-based athletes now for a little bit over 2 years, so what we did on this episode was we answered your most common questions about veganism. Now, we both get asked questions quite a bit, but we have very different answers and perspectives on all these questions. So we started with the basics like how did you go vegan and why did you decide to do it? And where do you get your protein from? And we went all the way down to things like how did you learn to cook and what kind of struggles did you have along the way? So again, both JJ and I share similar views on a lot of things, but at the same time, we come from very different backgrounds and we have completely different perspectives on all the questions that you guys ask. We also went to Instagram and asked you guys what questions you want answered, and we got some fresh questions from our listeners, so we tackled those as well. So although we give a lot of advice on an actual plant-based or vegan diet, I think anybody looking to clean up their diet a little bit and get on a path to a more healthier version of themselves, I think any of those people can gain something from this episode. So if you don't want to go vegan, that's fine. Keep listening. I think you're going to get something out of this. And at the end of the day, I think if one person can take anything away from this episode and make a positive change in their life, then it's all been worth it. Before I introduce today's guest, I'm going to get a little bit of business out of the way. So first of all, thanks again to everybody for all the great feedback. I'm continuously getting emails and text messages and Instagram posts and all that kind of stuff. And I've gotten a lot of people say that they've been inspired and motivated by the podcast, which is really the goal of the podcast. But honestly, I didn't think that I would really have that much of an effect on people with this project. So thank you guys. It really, really means a lot. With that said, of course, if you do like what you hear, please tell a friend and help spread the word, because the more people that can hear this, the more people that can be affected positively by it. Also, if you like it, it would mean a lot if you left a review on iTunes. So just go to the iTunes page, leave a positive review, and give 5 stars. And if you have negative things to say, don't leave a review and send that to me personally, because I'd still love to hear your negative feedback or anything that I can improve on. With that said, I know that there's sounds like maybe somebody's typing on a computer every once in a while, and that's not what's going on. I bought these headphones, these broadcast headsets with the microphone built in off of Craigslist, and they work great, but apparently they're a little bit old and creaky, and every little jaw movement or head movement makes a creaking noise, and sometimes it sounds like you're typing on a computer or something. So I am trying to work on the audio quality, but bear with me as this is a new project, and I'm doing the best I can right now. So what else? iTunes banner. If you go to the expansionprojectpodcast.com, I've got an affiliate link set up on the right-hand side of the page. You click on the iTunes banner, you buy stuff through there, and it kicks back a little bit of money towards me. That's going to help me possibly buy some better microphones that don't sound so creaky. While you're there, I also set up an Amazon store, and that has a lot of the things that I buy on a regular basis. We're going to be talking about food a lot on this show, and a lot of the food items that I buy regularly, I buy in bulk on Amazon, so I've got those linked up there, as well as some of my BMX products and CrossFit products that I like to use. So if you buy any of the Amazon stuff or anything at all from Amazon through the link on the site, then I'll get a little kickback, but it doesn't cost anything extra for you guys. So now that the business is out of the way, I can introduce my guest today. I am joined by JJ Palmere. JJ, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
So right now, JJ and we just finished up a delicious vegan lunch at a place called Ao Lac. It's a Vietnamese name, A-U, new word, L-A-C. It's a place right in downtown L.A. They actually have another original location in Fullerton, California, I believe. I'll post a link to their site on the show notes. We just ate there, and actually we decided to just set up shop and do the podcast right on their little patio. So thanks to Ao Lac for letting us do this. It's a little bit weird. I'm looking around. I see a Tutti Frutti and a Subway. And we've got some servers behind us. Actually, shout out to the really cute server that served us lunch today. So we're here at Outlack, and we're going to be talking a lot about veganism. And today, the podcast is going to be very different than my normal format. It's not going to just be a straight interview. And originally, I thought I might do an interim episode where I read off one of my old blog posts about how I went vegan and my experiences after transitioning to the vegan diet. But I decided that it would be more beneficial to more people if I had not only me telling my answers in a more natural way rather than reading the blog post, but also if I had somebody else with a different perspective on those same questions. So JJ is a professional BMX rider that transitioned to a vegan diet a couple years ago now. When did you transition?
Yeah, it's just over 2 years.
Okay, yeah. So we're both right around the 2-year mark, or a little bit over. So we're going to answer some of the most common questions that you guys have, and then we took a handful of questions from you guys off of social networks recently, and we're going to attack those as well. So a quick story about how JJ and I got connected. Again, as I said, he's a professional bike rider, and when I worked at Ride BMX Magazine several years ago, actually in 2010, in April 2010, so just over 5 years ago now, there was a local contest in New Orleans in my old hometown that some friends were putting on, and I decided to go back down and help out with the contest and do some announcing and do some coverage for the Ride BMX website. And at the time, JJ was on Premium. So Premium flew him down there for the contest just to kind of have a pro presence at the competition, and really just as a way to mix and mingle with the local kids, which was a real treat for them. But that gave me the opportunity to basically hang out for a week or so with a complete stranger in a town that I don't live in. So that was really interesting, and we had some fun times. We went out to the bars and saw some of the local New Orleans music scene down there.
Yeah. We went to Bourbon Street.
Yeah, Bourbon Street.
Yeah,
yep.
pretty famous street.
I remember JJ being pretty blown away by some of the what they call popping, or bounce music, where the big black chicks just bounce their ass up.
Yeah.
So that was good times.
Twerk music, I guess you can call it.
There you go. So that was how we connected. And then last year at X Games in Austin, I went to a vegan restaurant to grab some lunch, and lo and behold, JJ was there with one of his buddies. And he was like, "Oh, you're vegan? I'm vegan too." And we just started talking about veganism. Yeah. So we kind of reconnected after a bunch of years of not really seeing each other much. And then, of course, since then, I followed him on Instagram and on all his social networks, and have just come to realize that he's really passionate about healthy lifestyle and a healthy vegan diet. Mm-hmm. So I thought he'd be a perfect person to sit down and talk about this stuff with. And before we get into the topics here, I want JJ to do a little plug. I know you've been working on a book, which we just spoke about recently. So tell people a little bit about the book you're working on, maybe when we can expect to see it finished, a little bit of background info on it. What do you want people to know about a book?
The book for me, it started with, I guess you could say, Instagram comments. And from my Instagram posting, I'd always post recipes to inspire bike riders to eat better. And from that, it kind of brought me to a place where instead of making a recipe book from like a request through the comments, I kind of wanted to dig more deeper so people could understand why they're eating the food rather than just, go vegan for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. So whether it's vegan or health in general, I decided to make a recipe book, and from that it turned into a number of different subjects. It's not just recipes now, it's more about what to stay away from, what to focus on, supplementations. There's a whole controversy against supplementations and should we be taking supplements, should we not? About water, what kind of water,
So it sounds like what started out as the idea for maybe just basically a cookbook in a sense turned into a much bigger project on just kind of a healthy diet in general, right?
Yeah. So I didn't even know what I was digging myself into, but now a recipe book turned into kind of like a diet guide book.
Mm-hmm. Like a how-to guide, right?
Yeah, like how to guide you throughout your whole life, just how to live healthier in general, whether, you're still eating meat or whatever. But the name of my book is going to be Living Proof. Okay. And the name for that kind of stemmed from, me being living proof as a bike rider who can still live a successful, healthy life on a vegan diet and, not be deficient and kind of break all the myths that you hear. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure exactly when the book will be done because right now, like I said, I'm kind of digging myself in a hole where it's like just getting more and more in depth. Yeah. So each day I find myself writing about different subjects constantly.
And just because I'm so fascinated about the logistics and kind of the business aspect of different things. So when you say this, I'm already thinking like, okay, how much do you write per day, and where do you expect to publish the book, and how's that going to work through the economics and stuff? And I assume that I know that yesterday you did a podcast with Adam22 at the Come Up, so that'll probably be out by the time this goes up. So if you guys are interested in a little bit more about JJ's background and his bike riding and stuff, I'll link to that interview in the show notes as well. So I don't want to go over a lot of the things that you'll probably have talked about on there. But I'm definitely interested. You said you've been writing a lot. When is there a particular time of day that you set aside to write? Or is there a certain like kind of structure that you go by to stay productive in this book writing process?
Yeah, I mean, I try to write as much as possible whenever I have the free time. But recently I found that if I have like these waves of writing, and I feel like that's the way it is with anyone who writes. They have like a wave of inspiration, and if you're not in that mind frame where you're clear-headed and like things are just flowing naturally, you're kind of forcing the writing. So you hit a writer's block, and like you just can't get anything out. And even if you did get something out, it's not going to be the top quality stuff that you'd want to put in a book anyway. So for now, I kind of just been writing when I'm inspired at the most time, and I don't really have a schedule. I kind of just I do feel guilty if I'm not writing, because I know I have like so much work to do. But but
that's kind of pressure that you're putting on yourself, right?
Yeah,
I mean, nobody's telling you to write this. You just feel an obligation, or
I'm just doing it for the better good of all people, to give someone a product that I can actually hand all my work over, so they can better understand where to start a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah. I'm going to adjust your microphone. It's bothering me. I don't know if that's OCD or if I feel like it might not be catching you good enough, but there we go.
Does it sound better?
Maybe so. But it looked a little bit high for some reason. Like I said, it could have just been my OCD kicking in. So going back to the book, do you anticipate it being an ebook or a printed book? Are you thinking about publishing yet, or do you feel like you just want to get it done and then see where it goes from there? Or?
Yeah, I'm going to try to just get it done and then just see where it goes. I'm trying to reach a lot of people, not just bike riders. So I'd like to get it published, but really being a new book writer and someone who's just breaking into it, I have no idea kind of what I'm doing on that whole end. So
are you looking at certain places right now to help you learn where that might go and what that might look like, what that process will be like?
I mean, I've been doing a little bit of research online about it, but for the most part, it's just me and like my roommate and his friend going to help me out with like organizing stuff and checking over all the writing and getting stuff going.
I would recommend checking out Tim Ferriss's work. He's got a podcast that I listen to, and he's the author of The 4-Hour Work Week, The 4-Hour Chef, and The 4-Hour Body. And he's just a marketing genius, and he knows how to get books into people's hands and how to make an impact with them. And he's got a really popular blog that's got a lot of great free information out there. So it might be worth looking into his stuff to sort of figure out the process of how to take it from a finished product to getting it out to the masses.
And I feel like my book, the subjects I'm writing about are kind of controversial, and I feel like getting it published by an outside publisher might be kind of hard, just because if they see the subjects that are like kind of going against what society is promoting right now, it might be kind of hard.
So what exactly do you think is controversial about, or what would that?
Just touching a lot on plastics and really digging into that, like the toxicity level of plastics and how harmful they can be to people.
So you're talking controversy in the form of kind of going against like big business or sort of.
So someone's going to look at it and say, I don't know, this is kind of something we might not want to put out, put our name on it.
Yeah. With that said, over lunch we were discussing the documentary Cowspiracy, which I don't know if we're going to get to talk about documentaries during this podcast, but I'll go ahead and throw this out there. I recently watched one. It's called Cowspiracy, C-O-W, Spiracy. And they were talking about oh, no, I lost my train of thought. Dude, it is kind of weird being outside and having all these distractions and stuff.
Yeah, it's different than other podcasts. You're in the mix right now.
Yeah, totally. I'm like looking at taxi cabs and like water fountains and stuff. We're not going to edit this out, though. I'm going to try to remember what I was going to say about Cowspiracy. What were we on before that?
Just like controversy and like
controversy. Yes, thank you. Okay, so when he was making that film, he was trying to go to these different places within the meat industry and the agriculture of animal agriculture industry, and he was getting shut down and denied requests for interviews and stuff. And he finally got to people that were like, dude, people have died. Like, people have gotten killed because they were trying to expose, like, what goes on in this industry and stuff. And he was, like, legitimately fearful. And people were saying, dude, I don't know if you should release this video.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
It's that big a deal, like, where you might put out some material that's trying to expose what you think is just a truth that the public should know.
Yeah, should know, but like it's very dangerous to put yourself in that situation.
So yeah, if anybody wants to go check out that video, I highly recommend it. It's called Cowspiracy, and it's a little bit more in depth than maybe your beginner vegan documentary. But I found it really insightful, and it really helped kind of hammer in a lot of the reasons why I, choose the lifestyle that I do now. But we're going to get to some of the main topics here. And before we do that, I'm going to make a few disclaimers. I'm not a nutritionist and don't claim to be one. I have 0 credentials whatsoever. And I highly encourage everybody to do their own research. And my personal research is basically just from a handful of documentaries that I've read and from my personal experience. So what I want you guys to know going into this is listening to our conversation is that this is 2 people's personal experience, and that's all it is. And I'll ask JJ in a moment here if he has any credentials. But again, I don't have any kind of credentials that makes me an expert on this, and I only have 2 years of experience. So take from that what you will, and maybe you'll find something inspiring. Maybe you're going to find some holes in our stories that you can point out to us. That's welcomed. But take this for what it is. So with that said, JJ, do you have any credentials? What are you thinking going into this?
Currently, I do not have any credentials, and I do plan on getting some. I want to take a raw nutritional course. But my main whole reasoning for getting into this was getting to the bottom and the truth of food. It wasn't about which diet is right or wrong. I just wanted to know what was the most healthiest way of eating to eliminate all disease, all pain, suffering completely, and just live like to your highest potential and thrive. So that being said, I'm not a nutritionist at all, but I do learn from the top nutritionists in the world. Not personally, but I study their work. And just going from that, it's a lot of, I guess what you could say, you just overpass all the nonsense stuff that it's out there. And not saying that anything's right or wrong or I'm right, but
so with that said, I'll go ahead and say this too. It seems like JJ has done a lot more actual research as opposed to just kind of self-experimentation. And he reads up on a lot of this stuff. Like you said, he follows some of the top nutritionists. So his knowledge base runs much deeper than mine. And I feel like when it comes to this subject, he makes me feel like I don't know much of anything, which is totally fine. And I'm kind of my personality type, I think, is the type that I learn as much as I need to know in order to get the job done. And I'll relate that to photography, for example. I don't buy the newest, best camera, the most expensive camera, just because it came out and it's the new best thing. I buy when I need to get my job done in order to make pictures that I can sell and make me money. So I'm kind of a minimalist in that sense. So maybe part of it's being lazy. Maybe part of it's kind of like the minimalist mindset of I don't want to flood my brain with a lot of information that I don't necessarily need. So for me, once I found, the need and the reason to transition to a vegan diet, I had those reasons. And, of course I do learn a little bit here and there, but I didn't feel the need to know everything, So now the way we're going to work this is I basically have the handful of most common questions when it comes to veganism, and we're going to go over those. But first we're going to and then after that, we're going to get into some questions delivered directly from social media audience. But first, we're going to both kind of tell about how we got transitioned to the vegan diet and sort of our background with it. So I'll let you start, JJ, and just tell me why you made the transition, how you made it, like how you were introduced to it. Give me the whole background.
Okay, so it first started for me with my back injury, and I've always kind of been curious about health.
What was the back injury?
I had a completely herniated disc on my L7, so that's your lower back.
And this was from BMX riding?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that kind of really set it off for me to look other places on how to heal myself, because everything I was trying at the time wasn't really working. I went to the doctor, and he said, you're pretty much at the point to where you pretty much tried everything. I tried chiropractors, acupuncture, all types of different therapies, and nothing really worked, so surgery was the last option, and in my head that was not I wasn't about to do that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
cutting her back open and all those sensitive nerves. So looking elsewhere from that brought me to a place where I ended up running into a book on how to heal your back.
Mm-hmm.
And that, in that book, it said, it focused a lot on like not just nutrition, but the supplements you need to get your inflammation down.
Mm-hmm.
And what else? Basically, yeah, just going from that book led me to a vegan diet, but it wasn't right away. I was cutting things out slowly,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I recommended people is not jumping into it head first,
Okay.
even though some people can,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a pretty big shock on your body.
Mm-hmm.
And for most people, it's not going to be effective because they're just going to bounce back the other way and say that didn't work.
Right, right. Yeah, we're going to get into a lot more of the specifics later on. So that's interesting that you were seeking out a way to heal yourself from a specific injury, and that led you to the vegan diet.
Yeah.
So for me, I was 30 years old. I had never even considered stop eating meat at all.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a guy that I had kind of had a loose business connection with at one point, and he posted a video on Facebook. And I sort of wanted a reason to reconnect with this guy just to, like, get some conversations rolling because he's a big-time player in the business world. And I was like, if I invest my time to watch this video and have something to say about the video to him, then that'll be a good conversation starter, and that'll show him that I'm, invested enough in his interest to take that time out of my day to watch the video. So that video was it was just a YouTube video of a guy giving a lecture to a college classroom, and it was called "The Best Speech You'll Ever Hear." And,
yeah, I think I've seen that.
And I can't remember the guy's name. I'll post it in the show notes. But basically, he just lectured about veganism and all the reasons why it's a benefit and this, that, and the other. And in that, he sprinkled in some footage of some of the factory farming stuff and some of the animal cruelty type issues. And so it was enough like sample of what veganism is to get my wheels turning. And it was enough things that I had never really been exposed to or heard before. Even though I had friends that were vegan, I worked with Jeff Zielinski, who was a vegan BMX photographer. I worked with him for 5.5 years.
Yeah.
And, he was vegan all of those years, and it still didn't really have a big influence on me. Yeah. But once I had a couple of these little things sprinkled into my brain, I was like, man, I can't unsee those things. I'm like, that's bothersome, And while I was watching that video, I was actually packing up for a flight to Australia. So the next day I got on a flight, and I had downloaded Forks Over Knives, which another BMX rider by the name of Chad DeGroot had recommended. And I downloaded that and the extended interviews for Forks Over Knives. And I watched that on the flight to Australia. And
that's a powerful one.
Yeah, yeah. On the flight, I literally was like, I'm done. Like, now that I know the stuff that's in this video, I can't not change.
It just
and
clicked.
So where you were saying, like, you transitioned to it slowly, I got off the plane and I was like, I'm done. That's it. And because I was traveling for the next 6 weeks straight, I was actually in Australia for 4 weeks, New Zealand for a week, and then straight to Canada for a week. So my first 6 weeks of being vegan, I was on the road.
That's a pretty
so it's
pretty tough way to do it.
That's definitely a tough way to do it. And there was times when I'd be at a place and looking at a menu that was just 4 items that's like hostile or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, lasagna, that's not meat. And then I realized, oh, lasagna is like half cheese.
Yeah.
And so as a 30-year-old carnivore, I didn't even think about things that had dairy and cheese and all this other stuff in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I pretty much just went cold turkey, and it was a shock on your body. But so for me, it wasn't searching out a specific remedy, and it wasn't just because of animal cruelty. It wasn't just for health reasons. It was a little bit of everything. And I always tell people that if you don't have a strong reason, then you're not going to be able to go through with something. And for me, after watching, exactly. And a lot of people call it willpower, but I say that if you have a strong reason and you really feel firmly about something, it doesn't really take willpower.
Yeah, there is no willpower.
Your mind is different, and your mind doesn't think that way.
Yeah.
And so, it was definitely a transition, and we'll probably get to that in just a little bit. But that's how I did it, and I pretty much just went cold turkey. Of course, when I got back from that 6-week trip, it was much easier, and especially living in Southern California in Long Beach, like literally next door to a vegetarian restaurant. But that was how I decided to go vegan. And so we can get into a little bit more of those reasons later as the questions come up. But we'll go ahead and start off. There's an ambulance going by. I'm sure you guys can hear that. It might be somebody that could have healed themselves through a vegan diet going to the hospital. So the first question is basically what we just talked about. What made you decide to go vegan, and what were your reasons? So, JD, I'll let you start with that. And I know you said you decided to go there because you were trying to heal yourself. But what were the reasons that gave you that that big why to pick that and stay there?
Well, like you said, you know, those documentaries are very powerful, and at the same time, I hurt myself. I was watching the same type of documentaries, and also with my back injury, looked into more of like a healing aspect of juice cleansing. And the more I eliminated the meat products and animal products altogether, in hopes of healing my back, once I saw the results from like the symptoms just disappearing, that was enough for me to say, you know, this is actually working for the first time ever, so something might be right about it. So I continue to dig deeper into it, and it served me well ever since. So
nice. Yeah, for me, definitely one of the very first things that kind of sticks out in my mind is in that first video, you know, some of the animal cruelty type things.
Yeah.
I mean, there was footage of, you know, people just kind of like manhandling like small pigs and small cows and like punching them and like stabbing them with pitchforks and stuff. And those graphics were just really, really disturbing to me. And that was, you know, I had heard about factory farming, but I'd never really seen any of that stuff.
Yeah, most people don't know.
And that really affected me, just those visuals. And then in Forks Over Knives, they talked about the China study, which they, you know, linked all these cancer research to
pretty much every disease known to man right now.
Yeah.
Linked to the consumption of animal products.
Another ambulance going by.
Yeah.
So yeah, and they had another really interesting statistic to me, and it's interesting how certain things stick out in those videos, and it's been a while since I've watched them, and a couple of them I've watched multiple times. But one thing that really stuck out in Forks Over Knives was they talked about, you know, during one of the wars, a country went in and took all these this other country's cattle to feed their soldiers.
In Germany, yeah.
Okay, and so the
it was
people
actually Hitler.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I told you he knows more than me.
Yeah.
So they take the cows out, and so the local people don't have meat anymore, or don't have dairy anymore, both. And as a result, their cancer in that area went down, and then
heart disease.
Yeah, all these diseases went down, and then as the war ended, they reintroduced the animal products and the cows and the dairy back into their diet.
That goes up the cancer.
Yeah, everything went back up. Yeah, so that was really powerful statistic to me. So, you know, not that I was necessarily concerned about myself getting cancer or heart disease right away. Thankfully, I have good genetics, and health concerns wasn't a big issue, but just long-term health concerns. Like, I'm not worried about how I am now, but how am I going to be in 20 years if I keep eating like this, you know?
Yeah.
And so, like I said, there was just enough information in those videos to open my eyes to the animal agriculture, the big farming of it, and how that affects our economy and our environment, and how that affects the animals that are being mistreated and treated so cruelly, and then the health, not only short-term but long-term health effects.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the what and why of us going vegan. So our next question is there anything you were nervous about at first when you started making this transition?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you always hear rumors about like protein myth, and you need this, you need, you know, you can't get the fish oils that you need, and there's a lot of stuff. I mean, it's definitely true, some of it. Like, you definitely need to get your oils for your brain to have proper neurological function, and you definitely need protein depending on what type of metabolism you have. If you burn it faster, you know, everyone's a little different due to their genetics, but for the most part, anyone could go vegan and be successful if they cater to the protein ratios that they need. But yeah, I was definitely nervous, and then doing it alone, surrounded by a group of friends who I was the only one doing it. It's like a hard setting to do it in, but deep down inside, I knew there was something there that was just driving me to just dig deeper and really stick to my gun and commit to it 100%.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say, you know, being around friends.
Yeah, because that's a big challenge. Yeah.
For me, like I said, I was traveling at the time, and maybe that's just part of how I'm wired, because I didn't give a damn about what my friends were thinking at the time. Like, I was staying with a group of friends and kind of traveling around Australia and stuff at the time, and all of them knew that it was very new for me.
Yeah.
And of course, they were like, you know, a little bit questioning or skeptical and didn't understand why. But that part never bothered me. What I was nervous about was that I would have cravings for meat or something for a long time. I thought that I would, you know, and honestly, within 2, maybe 3 weeks tops, like I wasn't craving a hamburger. Like, a steak didn't really seem that appealing to me.
Well, I was gonna say, for me, I didn't really I didn't give up something until I was completely over it. You know, I never went through the process of like, oh, I can't have a hamburger or I can't have a piece of chicken. I got to the point to where I knew I was giving it up eventually, and I had that mindset. So going into my diet that way, I didn't really just give it up until I was absolutely completely over it. And I remember the last time I handled chicken, I was sitting there just looking at it like, I can't really eat this anymore. I put it down and just threw it out, and that was the last of it, you know.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. And again, a perfect example of why both of us are sitting here talking about this together, because it gives two very different perspectives on this stuff.
So I never deprive myself from it. That's like the one thing I want to tell people to be successful with it. You know, you don't want to ever tell yourself you can't have it, but that you can have it, but you don't really want to have it anymore. You know?
Yeah. So again, I mentally made the decision on an airplane on the way to Australia. It was a long flight. You know, at that time I didn't make the transition yet, so I wasn't prepared like I am now with bringing a bunch of food on the plane. So I got off the plane, and of course I immediately wanted to eat. So I went to a Thai restaurant with a friend, and never having ordered a meatless dish, I didn't even know what to get. So I ordered what I normally did, which was pad thai with chicken, not even thinking I could just tell them to hold the chicken, you know, and just have the pad thai.
Pick it off or what?
No, I think I just ate it, and I was like, you know, that's going to be the last time or whatever.
Okay.
But then because I was in Australia, all these guys were like, dude, you got to have the meat pie. You got to have the meat pie. It's like our traditional thing, you know?
Yeah.
And if you guys don't know what a meat pie is, it's basically like hot dog type thing where it's just like meat byproducts. Like if you ask them what's in a meat pie, they have no idea.
Yeah.
But anyways, I tried a few bites of this meat pie, and it was absolutely disgusting. And then there was another time, actually, Clint Miller, who owns a BMX company out there called Colony BMX, he had already planned to have a barbecue when I was out in town and to serve up some kangaroo while I was in Australia.
Nice.
So the last meat that I ate was a hamburger and kangaroo at Clint Miller's house.
Yeah.
And then, of course, like I said, there were some slip-ups where, like, you know, I got lasagna, not even realizing it has cheese on it, or I got, you know, some other kind of thing and it had cheese embedded in it. And then there was one standout night where, you know, I was a couple weeks in, and a handful of friends were at McDonald's at like 2 a.m. And I hadn't eaten fast food in years anyway, and McDonald's hamburgers or French fries didn't appeal to me at all. But the McFlurries were on the board, and, you know, it's like 2 a.m., and everybody's eating, and it's like a social time, and I fucking loved ice cream and sweets and stuff. So I ordered a McFlurry, and about 3 bites in, I was like, this is disgusting. Like, this was a good wake-up call of why I don't need to eat this.
Yeah.
And it's not good
people
for
need
me.
those wake-up calls, you know, because that's what's going to teach you.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of a little bit elaboration of my, you know, transition time. Because like I said, I did pretty much go cold turkey, but there was still a process involved, you know, of just literally just learning how to look at food differently.
Yeah, not beating yourself up when you do slip up. Just letting that be the learning lesson itself.
So the question of was there anything you were nervous about? Like I said, I was a little bit nervous about cravings, which ended up not being a factor at all.
Okay.
But then the other thing I was nervous about was going to my hometown in Louisiana, where everybody eats seafood. If I had gone there right away, that probably would have been more challenging. But I had several months to transition and sort of, you know, get into my diet before I went back to Louisiana. And still to this day, I actually went back there last week, and you know, my family had a big crawfish boil, and so I'm seeing all these things, and that was like the one thing I was like, man, like I know that tastes good. You know what I mean? I remember how that tastes. It's delicious.
Yeah.
So maybe that would be like a little quote unquote tempting, but it still wasn't difficult to stay away from it. But yes, I was nervous about kind of seeing my family and maybe how they would react, I guess, and how it would be just being in that family setting where we're so used to our family type traditions.
Yeah.
But it's been great, man. My mom's a little less accommodating just because I think it's a little more out there to her, and she doesn't eat quite so healthy.
Yeah, the older generations definitely.
Yeah, but my dad and my stepmom, they're really into healthy eating, and they're really big on like, hey, let's cook together tonight. Like, what do you want to make? Or, you know, we'll make a vegan dish for you while we have our crawfish or whatever. And you know, they're really good about trying to find a place that we can all eat at and stuff.
That's good.
So they've been super helpful, super supportive, and makes it a lot easier when I go to visit the family. You know?
Absolutely, yeah.
So my next question here is. Well, I guess we already talked about this. Did you make the transition gradually or in stages? So talk more about your kind of stages of how you did the gradual transition.
Okay, yeah. So I was in the learning process of just trying to educate myself on what I do need and what I don't need. And I knew that was like the protein source that I was getting all my protein from. I didn't really know about the vegetable side too much or even superfoods at that point, you know. All I knew that meat was bad. For whatever reason, like how the factory farming and watching all the documentaries, I knew I wanted to cut it out. So judging off of that, I went through whatever your typical American idea of what is bad. So I went from the red meat to the chicken, which is actually flip. It's actually the reverse. You know, chicken's the worst. But so I went red meat, chicken, then fish, then eggs and dairy, and then that was it. You know, then I eliminated bread from my diet and stuff like that. But yeah.
And
Like
how long was this process of kind of taking everything out? And
it was like probably over the course of like a 6-month time period.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this: as you were doing that, what kind of biological or physical changes did you see in your body? Did you notice yourself losing weight? Did you notice yourself feeling different? Or
Oh, absolutely. Way more mental clarity for sure.
okay.
Yeah, like my mental alertness and just being able to really focus on things better, and even my creativity, just all types of different like mental states, like really just coming to a place of like this is what it feels like to feel good, that type of thing. And
What about weight loss?
definitely weight loss. Yeah, notice myself going to the bathroom far more times a day.
Yeah.
Because like, you know, like things are just passing through.
Yep.
Without even being held back by anything. So
That's honestly what I was trying to get at, because for me, like I said, I did go pretty much cold turkey, and
so you probably had some blowouts.
oh my God, man! So at the time, I had a major sweet tooth. I was really what I would probably say addicted to sugars.
Yeah,
which is pretty much everybody in our society these days.
True. Yeah.
So once I started taking out those sugars and eating more natural foods, I was just craving sugar so much.
Sugar's the hardest.
Yeah. So what I found in Australia was just dried dates. You can buy a pack, or not dates. I'm sorry, figs.
Both are amazing, by the way.
Yeah, totally. So I would buy a pack of dried figs at the grocery store, and I know those have a lot of fiber in it, and I just kept chalking it up to that. I was like, man, I'm eating all these figs, and I'm having to go to the bathroom like 6 times a day, and every time it's just like water. You know what I mean?
Oh, really? Like that?
Yeah, and you know, maybe this is too much information for you guys, but we are talking about the body and health here and stuff.
Yeah. So you got to
So basically, in hindsight, what was happening was my body was cleaning itself out. So for about 3 weeks, I was just like purging. You know what I mean? Like,
well, like you said, the cold turkey thing. Most people don't realize if you do it cold turkey that the actual food isn't really getting through all the way to the stomach. You know, like I mean, it's still being digested, but the absorption of that food is being blocked by the other, 28 years or
right, the other
however
crap
long
that's in there.
that's built up a plaque wall against your digestive tract. So I think the reason for blowouts is like because it's just not being absorbed and just going straight through you.
Yeah, yeah. Dude, that's a good way to say it. Blowouts straight through you. That's what I was experiencing.
That's what happened
many times a day. And I was like, man, these figs must have crazy amounts of fiber. You know?
And that's what turns people off because, they eat like vegetarian for a week or something and they're just like, oh, this is unhealthy. I feel sick. I'm doing this or.
Yep. Yes. Luckily, I'm stubborn enough and have such an intense personality that didn't deter me at all. And I powered through it. And now, couple things now. I'm not nearly as addicted to sugar, so when I do eat the figs, I'll eat like 1 or 2, and I'm like, oh man, like that's a lot of sugar.
Yeah, you can
as opposed to before, I would eat like almost a whole pack, But I can eat as many as I want now, and I'm not gonna have a blowout like that. And, And on that topic, once that blowout phase did pass, I've become very, very regular, which is nice. I mean, that's healthy, you know what I mean? And I'd never experienced that before.
That's a good way to determine your health too, is by your bowel movements.
Yeah. So. Now I'm like on clockwork and it's great. I mean, again, maybe too much information. Sorry, guys, but
people need to hear this.
Yeah, I can like plan things because before there'd be times when I'm like, well, I don't know if I want to go do that because I'm gonna have to take a shit at some point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Now it's like I know when I'm gonna go each day, and it's the same time every day. All right, so talking about transitioning gradual stages, do you want to add anything else to kind of how you made the graduation from one step to the next?
Yeah, I kind of want to inspire people in a way of just don't jump into it too fast, Like do it at your own pace.
Yeah.
Because like all the information at once can be confusing.
Yep.
And it could be overwhelming at times, but just realize that just do your best with whatever information you know at hand.
Yep.
And just cut out whatever feels natural to you.
Yeah, I like that. Cool. So the next question, how did you learn to read labels or kind of find types of food that your body needed?
I feel like that's kind of 2 questions. But for the first one, reading labels, I recently read or heard something that was, if you can't pronounce it or understand what that thing is and the ingredients, then you don't want to eat it.
Yeah, that's kind of my big philosophy on most things regarding food these days. And when I started trying to learn how to read labels, there was a guy named Scooby who is this really kind of wacky, big, buffed up like bodybuilder type guy that has a really informative YouTube channel and website. And I looked at his website, and I think I probably just watched a YouTube video of him explaining what you're looking at when you're reading a label.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't have a good recollection of that, and I might not even remembered it had I not gone and read my blog post about this just a couple days ago. But my big thing is that I never looked at the calories necessarily. I did look at the sugar because I know that sugar's bad. Of course, I would look at the protein count a little bit, but I never looked at the fat or the calories. But what I really looked at was the ingredients.
Yeah, see, overpass all other stuff.
Right, I go straight to the ingredients.
Front of the box, back of the box, side, the nutrition facts. Go right to the ingredients.
Yep.
Because that's all that matters.
Yep.
And if you can't pronounce or identify what's in it, then you absolutely don't want to.
Yeah, and that's one of the big takeaways that I got from Forks Over Knives was just they don't even use the word vegan very much, if at all, in that video. They say a whole foods plant-based diet.
Yeah, because that sounds a lot better than vegan to most people. Because when you say the word vegan, it kind of it's very.
It could have some negative connotations or just kind of a stigma or something.
People take it because I feel like certain vegans are very like they come at people like the wrong way, saying like you shouldn't do this or that. And that kind of
I think anytime you label something, you're kind of risking that, you know.
Yeah, you're limiting yourself.
But yeah, the whole idea is just to eat foods that come from the ground and that you can find in nature. So if it sounds like a bunch of chemicals with a bunch of prefixes and suffixes, that's probably not from the ground. But if it says broccoli and carrots and, you know, other plant life, then it's probably pretty good, you know. Yeah. So that was my take on it. And again, I still don't know a ton, but I still look at the ingredients. And if I go to the ingredients list and it's super long, I don't even look at it. I just put it right back.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I know that's going to include a bunch of preservatives and chemicals and other processed stuff.
Yeah. Well, actually, to add on the label thing, I wanted to actually touch about people can label a bunch of things like organic, and then they have like the non-GMO certification thing that they do now. And you really have to be careful with that because I feel like there's certain bags of chips out there and stuff that people just they just put the label on it because it's almost something you could buy now. You know, you can buy the USDA organic certification, but somehow they will still find something in there that's like really bad.
Huh, interesting. Okay.
Just because, you know, it's a way of them selling the product still.
Right.
So really you want to get your mindset on like, do I really need this bag of chips?
Yep.
Or, you know, should I just go for a few apples or something?
Right. So is what you're saying not to look at just the flashy labels and to keep looking at the ingredients?
Because that'll draw you in now.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like it used to be the bag of chips that was dangerous, and now they have the chips with the organic USDA thing on it.
Right. So just because it says organic and just because it says all natural or gluten-free or whatever it might say.
Because they could still use canola oil and other types of oils that are very dangerous for the body.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good call. So so basically what we're getting at here is even if there's flashy, healthy-looking signs all over the box,
and they also
skip over that, go straight to the ingredients list.
They toss around gluten-free a lot too, and you'll see it on drinks and all types of stuff that wouldn't even originally have gluten in it, but it's a way to draw people in because everyone's on the gluten-free kick.
Yeah, I think that one's pretty funny when there's like you said, a drink that would never have gluten anyway, and they're just marketing it as gluten-free because people are drawn to that label now. Yeah, good call. Next up is how did you learn to cook? And maybe a better follow-up question or two-parter is, did you know how to cook before you went vegan?
No, I came from a pretty much standard diet, which is, you know, your average like drive-through window, hit stuff on the way, like very fast-paced lifestyle. So I didn't really cook too much. But then, I mean, getting older, kind of wanted to learn how to prepare my meals more. Yeah. So even not being health conscious, I would still be like making steaks, meals, and mashed potatoes and stuff like that.
So once you made the transition, were there resources like websites or books, cookbooks, anything like that you went to learn some of the basics or to learn how to cook and prepare your meals?
It was mainly YouTube. Okay. That I got into all that stuff.
And what would you search when you went to YouTube to find something? Would you search for a particular meal or a specific type of cooking or anything?
Yeah, like at first it would just be like how to make chicken Alfredo or how to make, you know, a steak with baked potato or whatever.
So when you went vegan, what were you searching for?
For that point? That was just more dressings and stuff because it's really challenging to find like a good dressing to put on your salad because salad can be boring to most people. Yeah. So first getting into it, the dressings were key. I feel like to keep you there and keep you feeling satiated because there's not a lot of weight to a salad. So you want to like throw avocado on it, and really get a nice tasty dressing to make you feel full and satiated. But I would just check on YouTube and type in like, you know, best raw salad dressing or vegan salad dressings or smoothies, things like that.
Okay. That's another interesting topic, and a place that we differ a lot is you, I think, eat a lot of salads, and like you said, one of the first things you look for was salad dressing. In the 2+ years that I've been vegan, I can probably count the number of salads I've had on 2 hands. Like probably less than 10 salads that most people would look at and say that that's an actual salad. I guess there's some things that resemble a salad that are maybe like kind of with quinoa and with beans that I would consider more of like a bowl or more of a full dish.
Yeah.
But what most people consider a traditional salad, I eat very, very seldom. I mean, hardly ever, you know. So for me, when I was learning to cook, you know, just to give you a background, before I was vegan, I made very simple dishes, and over the years I was learning a little bit more, but it was still like real basic, you know.
Yeah,
like
basic.
Just a couple of spices, you know, chicken and broccoli and green beans and stuff like that. So as I went vegan, one thing that really helped me was actually going to Pinterest.
Oh, that's a good one.
Because they have pictures with everything, and you look at the pictures, and that's what draws you in, and you say, oh, I want something that looks like that on my plate tonight. That looks delicious right now. So you click on it, you go find the recipe. So definitely in the beginning, I would search for like a specific type of food. Like I would go to Pinterest and type in like vegan, you know, Indian dish or something like that, and a bunch of pictures would pop up, and that would lead me somewhere, and I'd find a recipe based off of that. And so there was, you know, through that method of searching, I found a handful of websites that I really liked, their style of recipes and how clean they were as far as, you know, the good whole natural ingredients. And then after a while, I was able to transition away from the recipes and sort of either remember how I made them or change them a little bit to fit my needs a little bit better, or just
come up with your own,
create your own stuff, which is great when you finally get to that point. Like nowadays, you know, in the beginning, I would literally go to the store and have to buy like each individual spice because I didn't even have the spices. Now I have a spice rack that's full, and I can go to the store with no, you know, ingredients list or no recipe on hand, look at the produce section, pick out one piece of produce and be like, oh yeah, I want that this week, and then I'll buy everything else to go with it and create a dish around that one, you know, portobello mushroom or pumpkin or whatever it's going to be, you know. So definitely the cooking aspect is a learning curve also. But what I found is that at the time I had the free time to experiment and learn to cook, which if I would have had a full-time job, I think it would have been more difficult for me. But I really enjoyed that process of learning to cook. And now it's almost come full circle because now I've got to the point where I can cook a decent amount of stuff and I can cook pretty well, but I've gotten a little bit lazy where I'm not so interested in learning as much anymore, and I've sort of figured out things that I can make on a regular basis that are fairly quick and easy and not quite as time consuming in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And so now I'm like back on a little bit more of the time efficient method of, you know, getting my meal preps done 6 days at a time for lunch and dinner, and you know, not experimenting quite as much in the kitchen. Let's see. Going down the list here, we've got the question, have there been any substitutes or comfort foods that you had found helpful? And it sounds like for you, one of your big things was finding a good filling salad dressing and stuff.
Yeah. Because everyone's going to need something to go to that's going to make them stick with something. Yeah. So for me, I feel like it was mainly adding avocados to all my salads. Okay. And making coconut like heavy smoothies to really satiate you and make you feel full. Because like you said, you're on a different path than me with the you're making dishes and meals based around like quinoa or maybe pastas. I'm not sure if you eat pasta.
Not too much. In the beginning, I did a little bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, when I reached the point of where I ended up at, it was more about just trying to satiate myself in a way where I wasn't falling off the deep end and really just.
And when you talk about satiating yourself, are you talking about actually feeling full or feeling like you're happy because it tastes good, or hitting certain needs in your health?
I feel like on all levels, you know, because if, say you are eating like quote unquote healthy, but you're not being nutritionally met on a cellular level, then you're still going to be starving for food because as long as you're hungry, that's indicating that your body's saying you need to eat more, you need to keep eating more. Like it's not getting what it needs. So you could eat a whole jar of peanut butter and still say I'm not getting the correct minerals, vitamins, and enzymes that I need to actually digest that food, liquefy it, and make proper use of it. So so for me, it was actually finding a balance between, you know, finding things that tasted good, actually being somewhat heavy, but still being like a lot of vegetation and not
Right.
like heavier like quinoa and stuff, and like go more towards the raw side.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So for me, comfort foods in the beginning, I did do some pastas because I was real used to eating pasta on a regular basis, and I found that as time went on, the wheat pastas that I was getting that I thought was healthier just didn't make me feel very good. I have done a quinoa type pasta, quinoa based pasta on occasion, but I don't find that those taste that great, and they kind of clump together, and they don't reheat very well at all. So I don't do pasta very much at all. But that was kind of a comfort food in the beginning, where I just transitioned to like a wheat pasta with a bunch of veggies and tomato sauce, as opposed to meatballs and potato sauce and tomato sauce. So that was a good kind of comfort thing in the beginning for me. And another one was just oatmeal, which I still eat to this day almost every day. And maybe we'll talk about that a little bit more later on, about kind of what we eat on a daily basis. But I found oatmeal in the morning. It didn't make me feel like I was hungry or anything, and it was kind of familiar. Because I definitely wasn't used to eating vegetables around the clock in the beginning, so that oatmeal really helped out. Let me try to think. Any other substitutes or comfort foods that you found helpful?
I'm trying to think, because I feel like that's where I'm at right now, so it's not really...
Right, it's a little hard to remember 2 years ago what you were doing.
Yeah. I mean, like acai bowls, too. I know that like certain places outside that I would rather make them personally.
Right.
But I feel like an acai bowl is something where it's like, you're kind of getting a lot of sugar from it, because they put like a ton of like sweet stuff in it. Like they cut the acai with like apple juice or something. Yeah. And there's tons of berries and like granola on top. So I feel like that's a nice like sweet type of thing to replace like a bowl of cereal in the morning.
Totally. Yeah.
And that'll get you more on the idea of maybe I should eat more like of a plant-based breakfast rather than eating like, some type of sugary
grain
cardboard
like. Yeah. Like a Lucky Charms kind of thing.
Yeah.
Lucky Charms with, almond milk. Well, I don't know if Lucky Charms is, but, something like that could be vegan, but it's not going to really give you very much energy in the morning. It's not going to be really healthy for you.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So going back to the sugary and acai bowls and stuff, I did make those in the beginning as well.
And I still do make them, actually, but I tend to cut back on like the sugary stuff.
Right.
Like,
so that was the other thing for me, was getting my sugar fix, which that took quite a while to kick that. And it was actually another documentary or speech that I watched that really helped hammer in like how detrimental sugar is to your body and your health. After I watched that, I kind of had the same type of epiphany as the other videos, where it's like, oh shit, like here's the big kick in the nuts of why you don't need this, But in the beginning, while I was still very heavily relying on sugar to make me feel normal, basically, there was a lot of dried fruits, so dried mango, again with no preservatives or added sugar to it, but just the natural sugars in there, the dried figs. And again, I would get on Pinterest and just search for, vegan protein brownies or vegan cookies and vegan this, that, and the other. And man, talk about pictures looking good on Pinterest, dude. There's some amazing looking desserts out there. And a lot of them are really clean, And of course, again, I would, take those recipes and modify them a little bit to either clean them up a little bit or cut down the sugar a little bit, or just add in some peanut butter into the cookies or whatever it might be,
Or make them fit your program, pretty much, yeah.
Exactly. So the next question is, are there any social repercussions? So that maybe being, like we talked about with our family and friends, or,
This is probably, I think, the biggest problem in today's society, is actually being able to commit to it and not getting grief for it, what I mean? Because if you tell someone you're going to get a beer at the bar, it's automatically, okay, that's cool, like whatever, I'll see you later. But if you're telling someone I'm going vegan and I'm going to get a smoothie somewhere, they're like, wait, hold on, like you're going vegan? Like there's a huge issue right there where most people are stuck on this mindset of vegans are unhealthy, and to be honest, like a lot of them are, because they go down a path where they go down a mindset where it's like, just because I'm not eating meat that I'm doing okay, And it's like you can be vegan and eat Doritos, but you're not really doing much for yourself,
Yeah, it's funny that you say Doritos, because I tell people all the time, you could eat French fries and Oreos and be vegan, but that doesn't mean you're healthy.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've seen the same type of thing with people that are either vegetarian or vegan, and I look at what they eat, I'm like, wait, French fries and nachos with salsa? Like that's not.
No offense against that type of person, but their head is just in the wrong place, but their heart isn't, like, what I'm saying? Like they know that, I'm not harming the animals, which is a great, like, powerful thing to do, is steer away from that. But
yeah, and that comes into the why about being vegan too, is that, you know, if somebody's reasons is only for the animals and they don't necessarily care about their health, then that's great. In one respect, it's great for the animals. But I think you and I are both would rather see people, like, you know, improve themselves and improve their health. And,
well, yeah, it's like you're still harming somebody. You know,
Yeah.
just because you're not harming an animal, you're still harming yourself.
Yeah.
Which is that one word. It's ahimsa, which is I think it's like an Indian term for no harm to others and myself.
Okay, nice.
know?
Yeah, I didn't know what that means. There's a restaurant down the road from my house called Ahimsa in Long Beach.
And that's what that means. That
okay,
term.
yeah, I didn't know
and
what it meant.
That's why they incorporate around a vegan diet or a vegetation type of high plant-based diet. Is because.
Nice. So,
what was the original?
Are there any social repercussions?
Social repercussions. Yeah.
So were you living in Southern California when you went vegan?
Yeah.
You know. Okay. So he was living in Southern California. So was I. Obviously, out here, I think it's a little bit easier than other places. You know.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like there was much of any for me. And maybe it's the group of people that I was around. Maybe it's the fact that I wasn't around a group of people because I work from home and don't go to a job, or, you know, didn't go to a lot of places or whatever. But I didn't really feel like there was, you know. People make comments here and there, and most of it's jokes, but, you know, I joke about myself in those same type of ways as well. And like you were talking about, you know, with people's mindsets of, it makes me think of this meme that floats around online where it's like, you know, you do this and nobody bats an eye, and do this and everybody loses their mind.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's like, you know, you could say I'm going to get wasted this weekend and go on a bender and nobody bats an eye, but you can say I'm going to eat a bunch of healthy stuff or going on a juice cleanse and everybody freaks out.
Yeah, they're like, you're going on
crazy.
a juice cleanse, you're going to hurt yourself. You need this. You
Yeah,
need that. And, like, you know, you're good, whatever. But, yeah, for me, I definitely went through a lot of repercussions, I think. Not severely, but just it definitely was challenging. You know,
was that coming from friends that, like, just didn't understand, or where did that come from?
Well, yeah, I mean, not that it's so much of, like, a friend thing, because, like, no one can control you completely. But, you know, it's hard when you don't have support, you know. So it's easier for someone who actually has a friend to do it with, but I didn't have a friend to do it with at the time.
Yep.
So for me, I was all alone, and I was coming from, you know, my friends watched me. They knew I ate a regular diet and then switched it up completely, and it was just a little challenging, you know.
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
And I have a whole section on my book about that, about how to, like, really, you know, cater to your friends and, like, not really go against them, because a lot of people in the beginning tend to, you know, get on a mindset of, you know, they're against me or this or that, you know, when really it's just, you have to understand that they're not aware of the things you actually know. Yeah. And that you have to really be understanding and kind and loving to everybody. You can't just block someone out because they don't understand what your specific program is about, you know?
Yeah. So the next question we have is it hard to eat out? And in Southern California, it's not nearly as hard as other places.
No.
In the beginning, like I said, for me, it was a little bit hard because I didn't know what to look for. Right now, we're sitting at an incredible all-vegan restaurant. So I would say the answer to that question is it all depends. Like I said, in Southern California, not hard at all. Anywhere that is populated enough where there's ethnic restaurants, so any kind of Thai restaurant or Indian restaurant or Mexican restaurant, you can always find, you know, substitutes, or not substitutes, you know, vegan-friendly dishes there, or you can ask them to alter a dish to be vegan-friendly for you. For instance, at a Thai restaurant, you know, any kind of curry-type dish served over rice or without rice, with just vegetables. Any kind of noodle dish with just rice-based noodles instead of egg noodles and vegetables. Mexican places or Hispanic-type places, rice, beans, grilled vegetables, guacamole, salsa. That stuff's all great, you know. And then Indian, they, you know, do some naan-breads that are vegan-friendly, rice, and then different types of vegetable curries. There's also Ethiopian food. So a lot of these ethnic foods. The problem is American-type foods. So you're not going to find a lot of stuff at chain restaurants like Applebee's, Olive Garden, and, you know, steakhouse type things.
Yeah, and even if you do, it's highly dangerous still.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So those aren't going to have the best ingredients anyway. I always get by. There's only been a couple of times that I've ever been to places with people that, you know, the restaurant wasn't able to accommodate me and I just didn't eat, which kind of sucks. And you're talking about social repercussions. Like, yeah, that sucks. Like being the guy
barrier right there.
Right.
And it's not only like a nutrition thing. It's like on like a friendship level, because you're separating yourself from someone.
Yeah,
so
you,
it's hard
you
to
feel
deal with.
awkward and you just alienate yourself from the group, basically. So
For me,
yes. See, let's talk about for you eating out. What's that like?
yeah, for me, nowadays I personally don't eat out that much unless I can completely trust the restaurant 100%.
Right.
And it took
And
me a
that's
while.
kind of, sorry to cut you off. That's kind of going back to what you were talking about with the meat. It's like it's not that you can't. It's that you realize that you're better off not.
Yeah.
And you would rather do it yourself and do it your own way so that you can trust the food sources and trust the ingredients that go into it and the nutritional value it's going to give you.
Yeah, exactly. So my whole idea of eating out nowadays isn't the same as it used to be, you know?
Yeah.
Like before, I never even gave a thought or care to the barrier between me and my food. So now, not only is the people who are producing the food and then shipping it to the restaurant a huge barrier, but then like you have no idea what's going on behind the kitchen that you're eating from.
Mm-hmm.
So when I eat from a place, I really think about, you know, is there love going into the food? How are they preparing it?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so on and so forth. And for me, I'd rather just go hungry rather than eat at a place that I can't trust, you know, because it's not really food to me. It's not really, I look at it as it's not even like something I would want to eat.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm always prepared. That's the kind of thing, like I always have food on me anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit. That's a good point. And I sort of mentioned that when I travel is being prepared, and not only prepared by bringing snacks or food with you or having it nearby, but kind of being prepared in the sense that you're thinking ahead of like, okay, I know I'm going to go to XYZ place and I'm going to be gone from my house for like 6 hours.
mm-hmm.
In that 6 hours, I'm going to need to eat. So do I bring food or is there a place on the way? Can I schedule it around, you know? So to me, a lot of my preparedness is thinking ahead and kind of managing my time around my meals and my intake and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I run off liquids in the morning too, so it's kind of easy to pack powders.
Okay.
And then just put them in a jar and then just add water to it because it won't spoil. You know, you just have a bunch of powder in a jar, and that's enough like protein right there. And like, because most people don't really realize that protein works on a different level rather than just a hunk of meat, you know. They think it has to be something like beefy, but protein can be as easy as adding a powder to some water. You gun that down, and then you have you're set on your protein, and you'll notice it. You know, you won't feel hungry for the next 4 hours or something. So that's an easy way for me to just, while I'm traveling, just like get something out of the way, get a drink in me, and just feel satiated for a good, 4 to 6 hours until lunchtime. Or
for me, I've always had either a mental or physical checklist when I travel of, pack your socks and underwear, pack your clothes, pack your toiletries, pack your bike or your camera gear. And now I just add to that, pack my breakfast, pack my protein powders, and I kind of include in my list of, looking ahead online. And actually, this is a good one, too, about eating out, is there's an app now or a website called Happy Cow, and there's other resources out there like that helps you find healthier restaurants or vegan-friendly restaurants or whatever. So I just include that preparation in my travel plans, So, again, when I travel, I am going to bring food with me. I'm going to bring protein powder with me and other supplements and stuff. But I'm also going to look ahead to the restaurants that I can eat at. And I'm also going to plan to eat wherever I'm staying. So if I'm traveling for an extended period of time, I can go get groceries. Even if it's only for a couple of days, I can go to the grocery store and buy fresh fruit, buy some vegetables and hummus or whatever, things like that,
And just stock up for your trip. Yeah. I tend to do the same thing. Like I'll look, depending on where I'm going, just to check the area and see like what type of health food store they have in that area. Because I travel with bike riding a lot. So if I'm going to a different city, I'll just like look up, what kind of restaurants are in that area, or what type of health food store, like Whole Foods or co-ops, things like that. And then I'll just plan out where I'm staying and like kind of base it like, okay, well, I can get to this place, stock up for a few days, get exactly what I need, and then just kind of get that out of the way in the beginning. There's certain times where people are a lot more like courteous to me and like will like let me use the car or something like that.
Right.
So
kind of go out of their way to accommodate to your.
That's definitely a challenge though with traveling, is being able to get to the health food stores.
Yeah, I could see, and this was one of the questions that one of our readers asked, is specifically for you when you're on a team trip with other riders and you're not in control of the RV or the van or the vehicle or whatever. I don't really travel like that a whole lot these days anymore, so it's a little bit easier for me to take my rental car or whatever. But I can see where that would come into play for you for sure. I was about to touch on another topic of travel, and what was it? I don't remember. It'll come back to me. So do you want to add anything about that when you're traveling with your team? Actually, Preston Marco, I think his name is, had that specific question for you off Instagram is, what do you do when you're on a team trip?
Yeah, like I said, I kind of just I pick out the local health food store, and I try to hit that in the morning when everyone else is sleeping. So say we're staying at a hotel, there's like the main van that everyone uses or gets driven around in. I try to break away right before everyone wakes up, get to the health food store, get all my stuff out of the way, and then head back. But there's other times where I'll wake up late because, you know, we're out riding all night, and then I end up having to ask, you know, do you guys mind stopping at Whole Foods? And it's kind of like, I know it's an inconvenience for most people because they're on a whole different mindset of like, let's just get some food and get out of the way.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I was actually going to talk about before I lost my train of thought, was just the time-consuming part of it.
It is more time-consuming for sure. And it's like, it's really a big commitment because once you commit to it and you know what type of food you need, you know, there's no other option but to get that done for yourself. So.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing. There's no other option, right? Yeah. So, you know, if I'm in an airport and I'm really hungry, I'll walk hours and hours, it seems like, through an airport to try to find a place inside an airport that I can eat something.
Really?
Sometimes I come up empty-handed. You know, that's only been a few times, and I wasn't as prepared as I should have been with bringing my own food. But, you know, there's times when you're just walking. Another example, I went to South Africa a couple 2 Septembers ago, and when I got there, I swear I must have walked like 6 miles, and I just could not find anything to eat. And it turns out there was actually a lot of places like right nearby, and I just didn't look them up ahead of time. Yeah. And that was the price I paid. And had I been traveling with a friend, that friend would have been really pissed that we just walked that far and that long. You know. So I've definitely kind of worked out that as far as if I'm on my own, it's one way. If I'm with friends, it's another way. You know, and you have to plan accordingly.
And another thing for me is I'm very comfortable with going hungry because I do a lot of fasting and stuff. So for me, going hungry is different from the average person where like they actually need the food because I'm usually like pretty satiated from the food I'm consuming. You know, it's like it's high mineral, high water, nutrient dense food. Yeah. As opposed to someone who's getting no minerals in their diet from a standard American diet, you know, and they're being really they're really running off of like just the fix of food. You know, they're not really being like satiated by the nutrition aspect. Right. So for me, I can go hungry or go without water and not really think about it. Like I'll definitely be hungry, but I know like I don't need it to the point to where I'm going to die on a plane if I don't eat for the next 6 hours.
Right. See, that's another place we're very different because I actually feel like I have a little bit of anxiety around food, and I don't know where this comes from. Maybe I should see a psychologist and figure this out. But I feel like I almost stress out sometimes if I feel like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to eat for the next 4 hours, you know?
Oh, really?
Like, I feel like I always want to have food, and I'm just always hungry, and I'm constantly thinking about food, you know?
Well, that's what's pretty unique about both our situations. You know, you have like the actual, like the body, or not bodybuilding, but like really...
yeah, and I think a lot of that does come from how much I work out, too. You know? I exert my body a lot, and I need to replenish it a lot.
Yeah.
But even aside from that, I just love food. So I'm always thinking about it. You know?
Yeah, everyone loves food. It always tastes good, and for the most part.
So we talked about what changes did you notice after the transition, and you said you definitely, lost a bunch of weight at first, and noticed some other things. So for me, I actually lost weight too. Not that I had much weight to lose. I wasn't a big guy at all, but I did lose weight in the beginning because my body was, kind of purging itself and cleaning itself out. I've since gained it all back and some extra muscle mass, thankfully, on top of that.
Well, yeah, muscle weighs more than fat.
Yeah. So certainly, like the first 2 to 3 months, like I would meet up with friends and be like, "Dude, you look really skinny," you know, and so that was a change. But aside from the physical, you talked a lot about the mental clarity, which I never felt a whole lot of that necessarily. There was a time in the beginning where I feel like I got lightheaded quite a bit, and I didn't ever know what that was from, and I don't even know if I pinpointed how I fixed it, but that hasn't been a factor at all. And I can't remember being lightheaded, any time in recent memory at all. And that might have been, too, because I started CrossFit around the same time as I went vegan, like pretty shortly after. So I was really putting my body through a lot all at once,
I was going to say, for lightheadedness, most people don't realize how, like, dehydrated people are nowadays, Like, you really need, like, a lot of water to really make up for all the salts and other things that are really dehydrating people, like the sodas. Like, it takes so much to make up for that type of damage. But, I mean, I know you probably weren't drinking soda or stuff like that, but, no. I mean, for me, the mental clarity was a thing just because, like I said, I was on a more of a path of really getting to the truth of food and really, like, digging deep, going super deep into nutrition and just, like, excluding all the heavier foods, even being quinoa. Like, quinoa is awesome. It's a good food to help people transition. And it's definitely a good carbohydrate for people, I think,
Mm-hmm.
to get protein and stuff too. But
So let me ask you this: when you're talking about mental clarity, do you mean that you felt like you were thinking clearer about other things other than food? So, like, let's say you were riding bikes or doing a different activity. Is what you're saying that you were able to do that with a clearer mind?
yeah, yeah, and just like being more creative. Like I notice, like with my writing, if I'm writing, it's like certain people like they just can't get what they want to say out or
Mm-hmm.
something. You know, if well, to break it down to better understand it, like we actually have 3 brains that people don't really like. That it's kind of a weird thing that goes into the digestive tract, but
Yeah, let's get into it.
they say that you have like your top brain, which is your head, and then you have your stomach and your heart, and all 3 work together, and they all have to be purified. So that's why I got super deep into detoxing, because you know, I wanted to clean out my body completely of all toxins, so I can feel what it felt like to live in like a not the least toxic body you can in today's society. You know, because even if you're doing your best, you're still out here breathing in all these fumes. But so what I mean by mental clarity is once you clean your stomach out, and that becomes more of like a natural flowing, being able to absorb food betterly, you actually like you can get the effect from that food. You know what I'm saying? So if you haven't done enough detoxing, then you have a built up of like a lifetime of food. Like think about breakfast, pushing lunch, pushing dinner for the past 28 years of badly designed food products that aren't meant for the human body, you know? So that builds up a whole layer of stuff in your stomach. And the way the stomach works is it's got like a bunch of like little fingers that absorb the food. And when you eat bad things, it kind of just lays them down like a piece of grass, and they can't really absorb the food. So even if you're eating a bunch of good food, you're not properly absorbing it enough, because that type of, like that whole situation going on in your stomach hasn't been addressed. So that's why I feel like people aren't really getting the mental clarity they want from their food. And
Interesting.
yeah.
I told you he's on a deeper level than me, guys.
Yeah.
He is on a much deeper level than I am on this stuff. So not one of the most common question that vegans get, I'm sure, is where do you get your protein? So what do you tell people when they ask you this question?
Well, first I explain to people, you know, like I'm like, do you even know what a protein is? Because most people don't understand that it's not just a piece of meat, or it's not really an animal product by itself. That does contain protein in it, and it's also how much protein are you getting available when you eat this food. So I always bring it back to the point of
So what do you tell them a protein is? Like, how do you start off that conversation?
It's a long chain of amino acids. So it's like if you're eating a cooked piece of beef, chances are you're not even getting 50% of that protein because you cooked the beef. So right away, right there, you lost 50% of the protein that you're hoping to get. So say you ate a chunk of steak and then a head of broccoli, it's completely different because the raw head of broccoli has way more bioavailable protein for you to absorb. But for me, I focus more on like hemp seeds and high protein powders like chlorella, spirulina, blue-green algae, things of that nature. But yeah, protein's definitely a concern for me because I ride too, so I take a lot of time to make like smoothies with hemp milk or something like that, you know.
Do you take an actual protein powder, or do you get all your protein from the superfoods?
Yeah, I just do strictly superfoods.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's enough right there. I can definitely feel the effects of it right away.
Cool. Okay, yeah. So for me, when people say where do you get your protein, the short answer is plants.
Plants, yeah.
I get my protein from plants, just like I get everything else from plants. You know. But to be more specific about that and not such a smart ass about it, I started out without doing any kind of like protein supplement at all, and I only started doing the protein supplements after I started working out and doing CrossFit a lot more. And so in the beginning, you know, beans and legumes, whether that be black beans or lentils or garbanzo beans, was a big source. The oatmeal that I have each morning has a lot of protein. Peanut butter and other nut butters, different types of nuts and seeds. So there's lots of places that people get protein from that as a meat eater, you just don't really think about it as a protein source, because as a meat eater, you think of your protein source as a piece of meat.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a mindset that's just been like programmed to people for a generation now. And
right.
It really, that animal is getting their protein from the ground originally. So that's where you're hoping to get it from too. You're eating that piece of meat, if you are, to get it from where that animal originally got it from, which you can just skip over the cow and just go straight for the grass of the plant.
Yeah, good way to put that. I
Yeah.
never heard it said like that, but that's really good. So now that I've started doing CrossFit, I do protein shakes through supplementation, and I use a hemp powder and also pea protein. I've tried. I don't want to do soy because that's a whole other topic of soy products that we won't touch on just yet. And I've always been into like really clean and simple protein powders as well. So, knowing that I want my other foods to not have a long list of ingredients, a lot of the powders and supplements I looked at had these crazy ingredients that I didn't know what they were about. So there's a good brand of hemp powder called Manitoba Harvest that if you look at the ingredients, it just says hemp. There's a couple other brands of pea protein that just say pea. And then recently I got hooked up with a company called Nutrisuma who has a really good pea protein that's not single ingredient, which I used to always go for, but it still is really clean, very low sugar. And sometimes because of how hard I do workouts and stuff through CrossFit, my body actually needs sugar. So it's not always bad and not something I always need to stay away from 100%,
Yeah, I like to encourage that too. It depends on everyone's particular like individual situation, like just because say you can handle sugar, someone else might be able to not do it because they have some type of infection or disease that they shouldn't be taking any type of sugar, even fruit sugars at the time.
Yeah, good point. So yeah, for me, like I said, mostly the plants and vegetables and oatmeals, nuts, seeds, legumes, beans, but I do protein shakes, and as of right now, when we're recording this, it's May 2015, and I'm doing about 4 protein shakes per day. So that's like 1 regular scoop of protein mixed with either just water or sometimes unsweetened almond milk, maybe some other things, and throw it into a smoothie or whatever. So that's the main place where we get our protein. So we're getting into the hour mark here, so we're going to go over 2 more kind of main topics, and then we're going to quickly go through some reader questions. So the last couple things are talking about advice for people wanting to make this similar type of change, and then also some resources that we might be able to share to help these people out.
Okay. Advice on changing your diet, I think, would be to first eliminate the sugar and like the processed drinks. Like you really want to cut out any type of Arizona iced tea, any type of soda.
Energy drinks.
Energy drinks, of course, because they're highly dangerous. And that's definitely a thing I'm talking about with the mental clarity thing. Like eliminating those things, it messes with your neurological functions because they have aspartame in it and other things that are proven to damage the brain, not just stimulate it and like make it run off of like a false fuel type of thing. So cutting those out is definitely the first thing I would say. And then next thing to that would be eliminating dairy products because that's another industry that's like just along with the meat industry, it's pretty bad. And no one really knows what goes into a pint of milk, It's just like there's so many pesticides and larvicides and herbicides and the whole thing. It's just the list goes on, not to mention pus and all that. So you want to get away from all types of milks and maybe opt that out with hemp milk, cashew milk, almond milk, which is a great substitute for all that stuff, and it's really delicious too. And then next thing after that would probably be cutting out breads and then meats, because you want to really steer away from the man-made foods. Even though meat is really bad and the meat industry is a horrible type of thing, that's still something that people can do in like a cold climate that would be somewhat natural if you're living a wild lifestyle, living out in nature,
Yep.
So really cutting away all man-made foods would be the biggest thing I would say.
Cool. Okay, yeah, good advice. And again, there's 2 of us here, so we have different opinions and perspectives on everything. So my advice for people that change is first to find your reason for the change. For me, like I said, those reasons were I watched some documentaries and I was basically just hit with a ton of bricks and I couldn't not change.
Yeah.
For JJ here, he was searching for a specific healing tool for his body. So if you're thinking about making a change, make sure you have a very, very strong reason that's going to make anything else pale in comparison to it. Because if you don't have the strong reason, then you're just going to be, it's going to be that much easier to slip back into your old ways and do what you've always done. Let's face it, change is hard. It's called change for a reason, So that would be my biggest thing. As far as the actual physical change, that's a good question, and I honestly didn't think about it ahead of time. I agree with what you're saying about cutting out the drinks and stuff. And actually, that was something I had cut out a long time before. So I was pretty much only drinking water, I'd say, for at least a year or so before I
That's the
made
best
the
thing
switch.
anyone could do right away.
Yeah, so I would say
introduce
the main
water.
thing is get rid of every beverage except for water. And maybe that's just me being my real intense all or nothing personality coming out again. But juices have a ton of sugar in it, and it doesn't have the dietary fiber to go along with it to help you process those sugars.
Unless you're actually juicing the vegetables.
Right, exactly. But yeah, if you buy a carton of orange juice, like that's just as much sugar as some sodas and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So my first advice is get rid of every beverage except for water, and see how that goes for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, however long,
Yeah.
And try to notice the differences you feel then. I know a lot of people say that they lose like tons of weight just from eliminating sodas, not even eliminating juices or milks or coffee or whatever else, So I think if you go straight with water and nothing else for a while, I think that's going to help out. And then from there, just start looking at those ingredients on the labels. Go to the produce section and pick up actual food that doesn't have a package around it, and just try to go as natural as possible with as many things that grew from the earth as possible.
Yeah.
And I guess to add to that too, keep educating yourself. If you're listening to this, you might have already gotten a lot of knowledge from here, but there's so many other places that you can go to. And what I'll do is in the show notes here, I'll link to all the documentaries that I found helpful. And if JJ has any other links that he thinks will help you out, we'll add that as well. So you can go to theexpansionprojectpodcast.com, click on this post, and all the info will be there.
I also wanted to add on that last thing, the subject we were talking about. What could they eliminate to for the first introducing better things in their diet? You kind of want to find the foods that you're already eating and find the healthiest version of that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because that's going to make you transition easier.
Yeah.
Because no one wants to just completely take away everything they're already eating, because then it's just boring. And
yeah. Give me a good example of how that might look in somebody's.
Say someone likes ice cream, for example, right? You're eating Ben & Jerry's or some horrific, thing that they call ice cream, which is highly toxic and completely just bad for your health, and you want to replace that with something you can create at home, which would be freezing a rack of bananas. Say, you let the bananas ripen fully, peel them, put them in a Tupperware bin, put them in the freezer, let them sit there overnight, and then you could blend that up with some avocado to make it creamy. You could add some low glycemic sugar, depending on your situation, or if you can handle sugar, put some honey in it, and then you have ice cream right there. You throw some cacao powder, and make a chocolate ice cream.
Awesome.
There you go.
I love it. And that might sound a little intimidating or a little advanced to some people, just because.
Yeah. But when people try it, it's.
Yeah, no, it's really good. But I know that if I was just starting out, I'd be like, whoa, that's a lot to take in,
Yeah.
And it's funny that you talk about replacing better ingredients, because even years before I went vegan, I was very slowly trying to clean up my diet. I didn't realize how slowly and how kind of to me it seemed like it made sense, but in hindsight I was like, man, you're still kind of dumb. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What I would do is instead of eating, the old chili cheese dogs that I'm used to, I'm gonna get all turkey hot dogs and wheat buns. And to me, I thought that was healthier than the other hot dogs and the white buns. You know what I mean? And I would get 99% fat-free chili instead of the regular chili.
Yeah.
And to me, I thought that was making better choices to eat the same type of foods.
And it is too. I like to encourage people that it's not really so much about the healing itself. It's not about really reaching the goal, but the actual mindset is the actual change. That's what you need. The mindset right there is the ability to change. So once you even say you're eating this hot dog that is still pretty bad, but it's that mindset of adapting that new hot dog into your lifestyle, which leads you all the way up to a hot dog you would make out of walnut meat or something,
right
on something like a piece of romaine lettuce, which is your bun.
yeah totally.
So
we're definitely getting into some lengthy conversations here, so we're going to try to quickly go through some questions from our readers. So these were posted on Instagram, and of course you can follow me on Instagram if you want to chime in on some of these type of things in the future at FatTonyBMX. And yours is just your name on Instagram?
It's JJ Palmere.
All right, and of course we'll have that in the show notes as well. But moving along, so Anthony Trimble said, do you still eat sushi? So people ask me this, and maybe there's a maybe the word sushi in Japanese means something having to do with animals, but in our culture, we basically say sushi. You're talking about stuff that's rolled up in rice and wrapped in seaweed. So I definitely eat that type of stuff. There's actually a couple of all vegan sushi places that I've been to. One here in downtown LA, another one in San Diego, and there's a place just a couple blocks from my house that actually has vegan sushi, and it's great. And people, that are listening to this that eat meat might be a little confused, but I mean, just take the fish out of there, and you still got vegetables and rice and seaweed, and you can make a vegan type of sauce to put on it, and it's delicious.
Yeah, exactly. I think everyone's idea behind these type of these foods are pretty limited, So like the idea of my version of sushi is different than say someone else. So
right.
I still definitely eat every version of food out there. I still eat burgers, but they're not actually a burger.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's like more of a gourmet raw food that I don't eat all the time, but
yep.
I definitely treat myself here and there with like these imitation, I guess you would say, type of foods.
Right.
But yeah, I definitely eat sushi, but I don't eat anything with rice or fish on it.
Okay.
But just because like if I'm going to a restaurant, I know that they're probably cooking the rice and they're probably preparing it in a way that I wouldn't really be comfortable eating.
Gotcha.
And definitely not going to eat the fish coming from that. So.
Yeah. Cool. So yes, we both still eat sushi, but it just might look and taste a little bit different than your sushi.
Yeah.
So we've got a kind of funny one here from Joe Sisman. He said, "Is there anything funny you use to guilt meat eaters?" And I wouldn't say that I do anything to guilt meat eaters, but every once in a while I'll throw out something to kind of gross them out a little bit, just for fun. I mean, we're not trying to be assholes here or anything, but every once in a while I'll just tell people how an egg is a chicken's period, or I'll just kind of casually mention like how much pus is inside a thing of milk, just a little something to kind of gross them out and make them think a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I'm on the same thing as you. I don't think I'm better than anyone, or
of course
I don't give anyone grief, but I definitely get a lot of grief in return for my dietary choices, especially being with a bike riding group of friends who like to joke a lot. So
yeah,
I mean, I don't really attack them or anything. I don't like hit them with like some crazy facts, but here and there, like when we're at McDonald's, I'll just they'll be like, "Yeah, you want anything? You trying to get something from the dollar menu?" I'm like, "Yeah, just give me a bacon double cheeseburger with blah blah blah."
Yeah. And
I'll just go in, and then from that I'll stem on to, can you just add some extra pesticides and like just
nice.
Really get into like what goes into that meat. But it's all out of jokes and fun, and as long as you make a laughing matter out of it, you don't want to get too serious with it.
Yeah, of course. So Paul Stevens, a guy from my high school back in Louisiana, he said, "What are your thoughts on meats that is harvested through hunting when they need population control?" So this is, it could end up being an entire podcast on its own, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So my thoughts on that is that that's great if that's what you want to do, but it's not what I want to do.
Yeah, exactly.
And I definitely have much less of an issue with meats that are harvested in that way when they do need population control in a certain area. And it's hunted where, that animal doesn't know that a human exists until the second it dies, or maybe they've never even known a human existed, So I like the idea that animal has lived a good, full, and natural life in its natural habitat as opposed to inside of a farm or a little fence of some sort, and I don't know enough about population control to really speak on that at all.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I have much less of an issue with people that do that as opposed to the factory farming kind of stuff, but it's not something I'm going to do myself.
Okay, my stand on that is obviously I'm coming from a more natural side of things.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, understanding that we live on Earth and it's took so long to develop into turning the way it is, and the animals that live on it were here long before us. So I don't think that we need to populate control anything, because that's like saying, in this certain area, humans are overpopulated, so we need to populate control that. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't say you need to go out in the wild and hunt animals to control the population of them. Mm-hmm. And that being said, I don't think there's anything wrong with eating wild food if you live in a cold climate, mm-hmm. which involves animal products, because obviously what else are you going to eat? You can't really get to a grocery store that would have fresh produce, and like you're out there living in who knows where,
right.
Like you have to eat a piece of fish coming from the Arctic or something, but that's all a unique situation that you can't really relate to natural society.
Yeah.
Or not natural, but modern day society.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So we've got Jessica Danton, another old high school friend. She said, "What's your take on the paleo diet's view on legumes?" So for this, I don't know a whole lot about what the paleo diet says about legumes. I think that what they say is that it causes inflammation and they stay away from them. I eat legumes and beans, and I feel like it's a good protein source for me, and I don't feel like I have any issues from them, except for the fact that when I eat black beans, I fart a ton. But other than that, I don't have a problem with it. So I don't really know how to comment on that more than that, I guess.
Yeah, beans are very hard to digest in your stomach, so for different people it might vary. Some people might be able to handle them a little better than other people. But for me, I just tend to stay away from beans unless they're sprouted.
Okay.
And even then, they're still super hard to digest, so I kind of tend to stay away from beans altogether.
Okay.
As far as the paleo diet, I think it's similar to like a raw food diet, just with meat added to it, right?
Not necessarily raw, but just more natural. Like take out the sugars, take out the preservatives, and anything unnatural.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I couldn't really give you too much advice on the paleo side, but for me, I tend to stay away from beans.
Yeah. She also said, has anyone died from the smell of flatulence? And if you've been around me after I've eaten a couple days of black beans, you've probably gotten pretty close to dying.
Yeah, maybe if you lock the windows in a car or something.
So Dane Wild wrote in from Michigan, and he said, how does veganism work in a modern society? And explain your thoughts on reducing impact by nature, by being vegan. Sorry, I'm kind of reading this out loud as I'm trying to figure out what he's asking here. So he wants to know, how does veganism work in a modern society? And I think we've kind of touched on that a little bit.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. I mean, everyone has an iPhone pretty much, and it's not very hard to find like a local place that would be able to serve you some vegetables. But
and I think it's different in different areas, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I said, we're in Southern California. We're at a vegan restaurant right now. There's another vegan restaurant if I throw a baseball from here, you know. So in this area, it's not that hard. If you go to the middle of Louisiana, where I just came from,
it's a
little bit harder, you know. So I'm not sure what it's like where Dane lives out of Michigan, but you know, I've lived a happy 2 years and don't have a lot of problems in my life. So I think it does work in a modern society.
Yeah, it definitely does. It's definitely a bit more challenging for the average person, but you can definitely make it work. And there's definitely tons of resources around. There's farmers markets everywhere, pretty much any populated area. But if you're out in the middle of like you said, Louisiana, it might be a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, which Louisiana does have. In New Orleans, there's some really good vegan restaurants actually.
Oh, nice.
Went to one called Seed that was really, really good.
Cool.
But Dane also asks about what are our thoughts on kind of reducing our impact on nature by being vegan, but then still using batteries and plastics and cars and stuff, which is kind of a bigger topic than what we're discussing here. So I don't want to get too into that. But I think what he's getting at from that is, you know, if you say you're vegan because of X, Y, Z reason, well, then what about this? And, and to my thing is that, I say I'm vegan because it impacts our, you know, environment and our economy and the animals and our health. So you can, you know, kind of have a rebuttal to all those. And my answer really is nobody's perfect, and I'm trying to do the best that I can with me while still maintaining, you know, the type of life that I want for myself. Hopefully I can inspire and help out people along the way. But I'm not trying to be perfect because nobody is perfect.
Exactly, yeah.
So I'm doing what I can. And so, I'm still going to drive a car. I'm still going to use batteries. And I'm sure there's tons of stuff in my everyday life that I do that's having a negative impact on this earth. And maybe one day I'll watch some documentaries about that and change another part of my life for the better, you know?
I'm super big on all that stuff, too. Like, I try to contribute as less as I can to the industries that are thriving in those areas. Like he's saying, like plastics, you know, I have a whole topic on that in my book on how you should stay away from plastic. Not only is it harming us, it's harming the animals, it's harming all types of things, but that doesn't mean that, you know, I don't have like a plastic piece in my house somewhere, because it's almost hard to avoid.
Yeah.
But being aware of it, and definitely, you know, I always like to relate it to the term voting with your dollar, you know.
Right.
You basically cast a vote every time you buy something. So if you're constantly buying these like harmful stuff, like the harmful plastics, and, you know, obviously everyone drives a car, but just be more aware of like, could you replace something and lean more towards a natural way, like maybe get like a wooden toothbrush rather than a plastic, or go any type of route, you know. There's so many different things you could substitute now. It's definitely harder, just like the food. It's more challenging.
Yeah.
But they make it that way so, you know, those type of industries can still thrive.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's definitely something you might want to look into if you're a vegan and you want to get more in depth with it. But
yeah. Cool. So this is another one coming up from Scott Wire that I know both of us are going to have very different views on. So Scott wants to know, do you use juice as a meal replacement or with meals? So for me, I actually don't have a juicer. I do use smoothies sometimes, but I would very, very rarely. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I can't think of any time when I've actually used a juice or a smoothie or anything like that as a meal replacement. I like food way too much, and I would rather eat my calories than drink them. So, I might have a smoothie or a shake or that kind of thing with a meal, but I personally never use it as a meal replacement.
Mm-hmm. For me, I definitely, like I said, I run off a lot of liquids just to begin with. Just knowing the way the digestive tract works and just trying to nourish myself in a highly available way, I tend to go more towards juicing and like blended smoothies and like liquid soups, things like that nature. For the average person, I mean, you're not going to feel the effects that I would from a juice meal, But once you get down that path and clean yourself out enough to the point to where you can have a juice meal and then actually get energy from it, it's more powerful than eating a heavy meal at the time, depending on your situation, I use it as a therapy, but most people, they couldn't drink a juice and be satisfied because they would go hungry in like 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. But I definitely think it's a good idea to look into if you haven't done the juice meals. Definitely, I don't do it every day, but like I said, I use it as a therapy. If I'm doing like a detox or something or.
Cool. Okay. So again, both of us have a different perspective on that. So there you go. Crystal Arietta, yogi from out here in SoCal. She wants to know, where do you get your B12?
B12. Like I was saying earlier, the green powders, mostly from chlorella, spirulina, blue-green algae. They have like a marine phytoplankton as well. All has a highly available form of B12. But if no one likes the type of green powder, you should definitely take a supplement, because if you're a vegan, not only are vegans, but all meat eaters too are pretty much B12 deficient in today's society, because most people don't know that the B vitamins kind of hold a role in like neurological roles, and it's one of those things, like living in today's society, most people are stressed and they're using up their vitamins faster than ever before in all of history. So definitely it's a smart thing to take a supplement for that.
Yeah, I when I was kind of transitioning to the vegan diet and doing a little bit of research, I did find that B12 is the one thing that, people can't really get from natural foods. So that was the one supplement I did start taking right away. And I just buy, a bottle of 100 little little tablets. They're pink tablets. I don't even know the brand or whatever. Actually, I think they're on the Amazon store on my website. But yeah, I just buy them on Amazon, little tablet. I take it every morning when I brush my teeth. Mm-hmm. No big deal. So I supplement, and JJ gets his from different superfoods. So we've got Vim.x. He asks me if I would consider making a cooking tutorial. And I don't think I'm going that route. JJ is definitely going that route.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's going to do it on YouTube necessarily, but he's making a book for you. I don't think I'm knowledgeable enough for that. I'm sure that I've got recipes that some people seem to be into that I post online. But most of them are ones that I've just taken from somewhere else, and I just make them or change them a little bit or something.
Yeah.
But no, I don't. That doesn't interest me at this point. So do you have any plans to make like YouTube tutorials or videos or anything like that?
I actually was just gonna say I plan on starting a YouTube channel focused on not just recipes but all types of subjects, just like my book, just to educate people more in a way so they can understand why to go down this path rather than the other path, which is going to lead you to less than healthy lifestyle.
Yeah.
But I'm still new to all this stuff, and this podcast is the second one I've ever done, and talking in front of cameras is still kind of awkward for me, so it's going to take a bit of time, but in due time, the YouTube channel is coming. Awesome.
We'll look out for that, Vim.x. And then he also asked, what have you eaten today? So this could go on for a while, but I don't think we're pressed for time. You're good on time?
Yeah, I'm good on time.
Okay, cool. So I mentioned before that I eat the same thing a lot, and I think people are really interested in that. I do get asked that question a lot. So I'll go ahead and say what I ate. Today is maybe a bad example because we did just eat here at this restaurant. But a typical day, I start out with a gluten-free oatmeal, and after I cook it, I just cook it with water in the microwave, and then I pour in some chia seeds, hemp seeds, and flax seeds, and then a big scoop of peanut butter and a banana, and I just mash it all up together. So we're talking about protein content, and that's probably got like over 40 grams of protein right there. which is way more than most people would get in a normal breakfast.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I do a protein shake as well. So that's just, a scoop of protein powder, drop it in water, and that's my breakfast. And I've been eating the same thing every day for, almost 2 years or over 2 years probably, deviating a little bit here and there if I'm on a trip and can't quite get to what I need. But even on trips, it's super easy to bring oatmeal and seeds and peanut butter with me and stuff. So even if I'm in a hotel room or whatever, I'll find a way to make it work. And it's gotten to the point now where, some people, like to have their coffee in the morning, and if they don't have their coffee, they just don't feel right. And there's kind of people that kind of joke about oh, don't talk to me until I've had my coffee this morning, or don't try to get me to do anything until I've hit Starbucks. I'm a little bit in the same way with my oatmeal. I go to bed at night just excited about eating my oatmeal in the morning. It's something I look forward to, and it's just a good way to start my day. And each day that I have it, I just feel like I'm starting the day off right. And then for lunch, I've been having the same thing for many months now as well. I've gotten into this meal prep thing, and so I chop up bell pepper, tomato, mushroom, yellow onion, and then use a half a can of organic lentils. I just use canned ones because it's easy and quick. And then I pour that into a skillet with just a little bit of olive oil, cook it up on the stove, throw on some raw spinach, and I don't like it super crunchy all the time, so I actually throw it on top of the skillet after everything's cooked and just let it sit for a minute. So it's not fully wilted but not totally raw. Pour it up on a plate and serve some green salsa on top with avocado. So there's 6 or 7 types of vegetables in there, and super filling. And what I like about it is that I can prepare 6 meals at a time and just chop up everything and separate it into Tupperware dishes. And to make the whole week's worth, 6 meals worth, it probably cost about $27 or so with everything included for 6 meals. But what I like about it is that after it's chopped up, it takes about, 7 or 8 minutes to cook. And every day I feel like I have a home-cooked meal that's hot and prepared fresh, as opposed to just reheating something, And then for dinners, I might have something like a Thai curry served over quinoa. Or this past week, I made a cauliflower mash that's kind of like mashed potatoes. Used a portobello mushroom that I grilled up that looked sort of like a steak, and then had green beans and carrots on the side as well. So I basically had a kind of a hearty steak and potato vegetable entree, and I had that 6 nights in a row,
Nice,
So that's kind of a good example of what I might eat in a typical day.
Yeah, so for me, I kind of, like I was saying, I run off liquids in the morning just because I know, I work better that way, and, having a clear mind also comes from, not loading your stomach with food. And for me, it's I wake up in the day, or in the morning, and I'll have a full glass of water with lemon just to get things moving, detoxify myself and hydrate myself. And then from that, I will start making a superfood smoothie. Typically, if I'm going to ride, I'll make something with a coconut water and meat based chocolate.
Coconut meat, to be clear for everybody listening.
Yeah, coconut meat and the water inside the coconut. And I'll add things like cacao beans, maca powder, hemp seeds, honey, the blue-green algae that I have, goji berries. I'll kind of mix all that stuff up. I'll put reishi mushroom powder in there, and that's a good thing for your immune system. It's actually building immunity. So it's not only medicine, but I have a mineral blend too, because I know how important minerals are in your diet, and the modern food today doesn't have enough minerals to conduct the vitamins that it contains in the food. So I'll put all those powders in a coconut smoothie, blend that up, go out the door with that, and then I'll be good for the next 4 hours until, say, lunchtime or a little bit after lunch, and then I'll go to the store and maybe get some fruit, like some bananas or apples, some type of thing that's easy to carry when I'm out riding, and just put that down with some almond butter. Usually it's raw almond butter or cashew butter or something, and that'll hold me over till dinner time. And in between that, I might have another juice or tea or something to really just give me an extra kick to go till the nighttime. And then once I get home at night, that's when I'll settle down and kind of make a very large salad, my heavy meal for the day, and I'll load it up with avocado and sprinkle some seeds on it, some soak seeds, make a nice dressing out of basil and herbs, and also add superfoods to that too, and that'll be the way I end my day. And usually I have maybe a little bit of water after that, just to get things nice and settled for the day, and then that's about it for my program.
Cool. Yeah, so now you know what a typical day looks like for two very different vegans. My buddy Udi Bio in Louisiana says, is my dog vegan too? And no, he's not. Dogs are meat eaters. And although I've read that they can survive on a vegan diet, that's not something I want to try to do. So I just try to get some of the most high-quality food I can. And it's probably not the highest quality food out there, but it is better than most of the stuff on the everyday shelf. On our last question here is from BMX King 562, and he says, "Where do I start? I've been eating all that crap for so long, and my advice to you is to stop eating the crap." So I think after listening to this, you should all know where you can start, or at least have a better idea if you are wanting to make some changes, of different things you can do to either start a full transition or just clean up what you're doing a little bit,
Yeah.
So hopefully this info has served you well. Is there anything else you want to add or that we might have left out?
Well, maybe to touch on that last one, just not really overwhelming yourself with the information and not being like just too, drawn away from it. Like really just taking a second to realize that it's not something you're going to be able to do overnight, and don't let that scare you just because, someone else is saying you need this, and that, or this much protein and all that. Just like focus on, what makes sense to you and the information that you're getting thus far, So make the best of the information that you got from this, and hopefully it can serve you somehow.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think that's really good. So we're going to wrap up here. And if people want to find you or connect with you online, where should they go?
You can go to JJ Palmere, or at JJ Palmere, which is my Instagram, and I always talk about food-related stuff and post bike riding posts on that. And I also have a website I'm currently working on, and that is plantsbasically.com. And aside from that, I have my Facebook, which is just JJ Palmere, and my Twitter. I don't really update that much, so I'm not even going to, you know what I mean?
Cool, no worries. All right, and if you want to check out all the links that we're talking about and click on JJ's stuff, I'll have it posted at theexpansionprojectpodcast.com. Also, while you're there at the site, of course, you can click on that Amazon banner and help out the show by making your purchases from there. If you want to follow me, my social networks are at FatTonyBMX. And what else? I think that's about it. So we're going to wrap up there. Thank you guys for listening. And, of course, hit us both up if you have questions. Obviously we're doing this to help inspire and motivate other people and help people make better changes in their lives. So if you have anything for us, hit us up, and we'll be happy to help out wherever we can.
Thank you, guys.
Cool. Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. Catch you next time.